Yeah, I was a programmer at a couple different companies, and then I was fortunate and had an idea of something that I really wanted to do. That was in 1990. So I took a year off and consulted on the side part-time, and then wrote a program that ultimately turned into a company, which was a reasonable success. Morgan Stanley took us public in 1995. It doubled every year. And that ultimately is the company that was so much process that it got too rigid. So it was a great learning lesson.
All right. So when you ultimately left that company after taking it public and ultimately merging with somebody else, you had the idea of starting what is now Netflix. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, the timing was shortly thereafter that a colleague of mine from Pure, Mark Randolph, and I were brainstorming on different ideas. And then, like many people at that point, I had had this terrific late fee. And so was, thinking there has to be a better way. And then it's when this friend told me about DVD that I realized, oh, you could mail those cheaply and that you could potentially build a business there that was not in Amazon's direct interest because of the return loop that you constantly return these DVDs, which was unlike Amazon's core. So it was e-commerce, but a smaller market than what Amazon was going after.
The story is that you took out some DVDs, I guess, from Blockbuster. You found out that you had kept them too long. You didn't like paying the late fee, and that prompted you to think of something like this. Is that fair, or is that just apocryphal?
No, that's accurate. But it, sort of says every time something goes wrong, the idea didn't pop into my head right then. It was later, when I was debating ideas that the sting of that stuck because it was a $40 late fee. So, and it was all my fault of just not bringing it back.
So originally you're mailing DVDs back and forth, but the idea of streaming, who came up with the idea that that would be better? And was streaming that prevalent then, or that common, or people knew what it was?
Yeah, people knew what it was. And, I had had the good fortune. The year I came back from the Peace Corps, so that's mid 80s now, I got a job serving coffee at a company. And it turned out that that company, a computer lab, was the very first .com. So there were no .coms at all. And then there was the first one, and that was this company, Symbolics.com. And so this was a company out of MIT that was like the hotbed of the internet, but nobody knew the internet. And so there I was serving coffee, soaking up the culture and how they thought. And so when I eventually, went on to Stanford, I was in the internet thing, and then had been part of that and tracking that for a decade. When it was a decade when Netscape went public and everyone else tuned into it. So, I mean, some of that again is just incredible serendipity of, what's the company that I got a job serving coffee in the computer lab.